Why were some truths about humanity deliberately hidden? Not because they were too complicated, but because they were too dangerous. The story we've been told begins in Genesis with Adam, Eve, and the serpent. But what if that story isn't the beginning? What if it's only a middle chapter, a fragment of a far older, darker tale? Something that unfolded long before Eden, long before humanity even existed as we know it. Something that, if fully understood, could change everything we believe about the world, about God, and about ourselves. That tale is recorded in the Book of Enoch. Most people have never heard of it, or if they have, they've been told it's merely apocryphal, a curiosity with no real authority. But the truth is far stranger. Enoch wasn't a philosopher or a theologian. He was a witness, a man who walked so close to God that he saw things no mortal was meant to see. He was shown the heavens, the fallen angels, the gateways between worlds, and the judgments awaiting both the righteous and the rebellious. And he wrote it all down, not as metaphor, not as legend, but as testimony. He captured a hidden reality that the Bible only hints at, a story deliberately left in the shadows. Before Eden, before creation as we recognize it, there were the Watchers, celestial beings sent to observe humanity. They were not gods. They were not men. They were angels, tasked with witnessing the unfolding of life on earth. But observation was never enough. Over time, desire crept in. The daughters of men, their beauty and vitality, captivated these celestial visitors. And when they crossed the line, taking human wives, they unleashed a chain of events that corrupted not only humanity, but creation itself. The Nephilim were born, giants, hybrids, beings of such power and ambition that their existence reshaped the very structure of life. Knowledge that had been meant to guide and protect became corrupted by ambition and desire, teaching humans things they were never meant to know: weapons, sorcery, secrets of the stars. It was a contamination of the physical, the spiritual, and even the bloodline itself. And yet, this story was hidden, silenced, forgotten in most Western traditions. Why? Because it revealed too much. It challenged the idea that evil began in human hearts. It suggested that corruption came from above, from those sent to observe. And that revelation is dangerous, even today. It asks us to question everything we think we know about our origins, our purpose, and the very fabric of reality itself. What if the echoes of that ancient corruption still linger within us? What if the restlessness, the conflict, the darkness we sense in the world is a remnant of that first breach? That is the mystery we are about to explore. They were called the Watchers. Not men, not gods. Angels sent by God to observe humanity. At first, they did as they were commanded, standing at the boundary between the seen and unseen, witnessing life unfold. But observation alone could not contain curiosity, nor quell desire. The daughters of men, radiant and alive, stirred something within them, a longing that could not be denied. And when longing becomes action, the consequences echo through time. These angels descended upon Mount Hermon. They made a pact, a silent rebellion, a decision that would change the course of creation forever. They took human wives, and with them, they begot children unlike anything the world had ever seen: the Nephilim, giants, hybrids, beings that devoured the earth around them, leaving destruction in their wake. Their presence was more than physical. It was spiritual, a corruption that spread into the bloodlines of humankind, reaching into the very essence of creation itself. This was not a myth. Enoch records names, motives, and deeds, painting a picture of a world unraveling under the weight of divine rebellion. The knowledge these Watchers brought to humanity was equally dangerous. They taught the use of metals, but not just for crafting tools. They forged weapons. They instructed men in the patterns of the stars, but also in sorcery and forbidden rituals. Knowledge meant to illuminate became a tool of ambition, a spark that ignited chaos. Humanity, once innocent, now walked in a world touched by corruption. And this corruption was not temporary. It lingered, hidden in lineages, in the soil, in the very structure of reality. The Book of Enoch warns us that evil was not born in human hearts alone. It fell from the heavens, carried by those who were meant to guide and observe. And yet, the story is almost entirely absent from the Bible we read today. Why? Perhaps because it upends everything we thought we knew. If the first corruption came from above, then our understanding of sin, of morality, of divine order must be reconsidered. Could the restlessness we feel, the shadow of conflict in our souls, be a distant echo of that original rebellion? What if the temptation that has plagued humanity for millennia was first a temptation of angels? Think about it. These were beings of immense power, tasked with watching, with protecting, yet they fell. And with their fall came the first breach, the first war waged not openly, but in silence, behind the scenes of the world we know. And the consequences were not contained to that time. They ripple into today, unseen but still felt. This is why the Nephilim matter. This is why their story, hidden and forbidden, continues to haunt the edges of Scripture. But there is one detail that has puzzled scholars for centuries. What became of the Watchers themselves after this act of rebellion? The answer is as unsettling as it is revealing, and it brings us to the next chapter of this ancient tale. The world could not survive as it was. The corruption that began with the Watchers had spread into every corner of creation, seeping into humanity, twisting the bloodlines, and contaminating the very fabric of life. It wasn't just that humans had grown wicked. It was that the world itself had been infiltrated by a force that was never meant to mix with the earthly order. And so, a reset became necessary, a cleansing of the corruption that had overtaken creation. This is where Noah enters the story. Often remembered simply as the righteous man who built an ark, Noah's significance is far deeper than that. He was chosen not only for his faithfulness, but because his bloodline remained untouched by the corruption that had spread through humanity. In the eyes of God, his lineage was pure, untainted, a vessel through which life could continue after the floodwaters cleansed the world. Every detail of the flood, from the gathering of the animals to the rain that fell for 40 days and 40 nights, can be seen as a deliberate act to reset creation itself. It was not merely punishment. It was repair, reconstruction, a divine intervention in the structure of life. And yet, there is something profoundly unsettling about this interpretation. It suggests that the disaster was not entirely caused by human sin, as we have been taught. Instead, it was a cosmic response to the breach that began with those who fell from above. The spiritual war that started with the Watchers did not end with the flood. It left its mark in ways we cannot easily measure. Could it be that the restlessness, the moral ambiguity, the chaos we see in the world today is an echo of that original contamination? Are we still, in subtle ways, carrying the consequences of that ancient rebellion within our own lives, within our own DNA? The Book of Enoch makes this point with shocking clarity. It emphasizes that the divine plan was sabotaged from within. Evil did not begin solely in the human heart. It began with those sent from the heavens, with beings meant to observe and guide. And because their disobedience came first, it reshaped the way humanity would experience creation, temptation, and sin for generations. The flood was a reset, but it was not a perfect one. It preserved a line of purity, yet it could not erase the memory, the spiritual shadow of what had come before. Imagine, for a moment, the weight of that revelation. The events of Genesis, so familiar to us, suddenly appear as only one chapter of a far larger story. A story of cosmic rebellion, of knowledge corrupted by ambition, of divine intervention that resets the order of life itself. And if that is true, it forces us to reconsider not just our understanding of history, but our perception of morality, free will, and the nature of spiritual conflict. What began on Mount Hermon and in the forbidden unions of angels and humans set the stage for everything that followed, and perhaps everything that still continues today. And yet, the story does not end with Noah. There is someone who witnessed it all, someone who saw the fall of angels, the corruption of mankind, and the cleansing flood. Someone who walked so close to God that he was taken, removed from the world, and given knowledge that no ordinary human could bear. His name was Enoch, and understanding his witness is the key to seeing the truth behind the flood, behind the Nephilim, and behind the hidden history of humanity. But there's one detail about Enoch's journey that has puzzled scholars for centuries, and it is this mystery that brings us to the next chapter of our story. Among all the figures in Scripture, Enoch may be the most mysterious. Genesis tells us only a few lines. He walked with God, and then he vanished. He never died. He left no grave. Brief, almost cryptic. But the Book of Enoch fills in the spaces between those lines, revealing a story so vast it challenges everything we thought we knew about heaven, earth, and the forces that govern both. Enoch was not just a man of faith. He was a witness, a traveler of the hidden realms. He saw the Watchers fall, the gates of heaven, the structure of the cosmos, and the judgment that awaited both angels and men. He was shown the celestial order, the thrones of the righteous, and the destinies prepared for those who defied God. And he recorded it all. His writings are not poetic allegories or mythological tales. They read like testimony from someone who experienced what most of humanity could not even imagine. Every description, every vision, carries weight, as though the very fabric of reality bends beneath the truths he reveals. Yet, for centuries, this knowledge was kept hidden. The early Jewish community read and preserved his writings. Early Christians studied them. The New Testament even quotes Enoch directly in the Book of Jude. And then, slowly, the text disappeared from most Western traditions. Some say it was too symbolic. Others say it was too dangerous. Perhaps, as many scholars now suspect, it was banned not because it was false, but because it was too true, too illuminating, too capable of challenging established religious authority and human assumptions about sin, morality, and divine order. Enoch's journey invites us to consider questions that most of us avoid. What if the first corruption came not from human hearts, but from the heavens? What if the chaos and restlessness we sense in the world today are echoes of ancient spiritual battles? And what if humanity's capacity for understanding, for awakening to these truths, has always been limited by what we were allowed to see? The Book of Enoch does more than decode Genesis mysteries. It projects forward, outlining cycles of history, eras of judgment, and the ultimate fall of rebellious angels. It presents the messianic hope, the purification of the earth, and the restoration of justice. And all of this long before John recorded Revelation. Could it be that Enoch's visions inspired later prophecy, or were they simply parallel insights into the same divine timeline? Scholars debate, but the evidence is striking. The precision, the symbolic depth, the urgency of his words all suggest that these are not mere myths. They are memory, prophecy, and warning intertwined. And yet, even with all this knowledge, Enoch remains a figure removed from human comprehension. Taken by God, preserved, untouched by death, he serves as a bridge between the mortal and the divine. A mirror for what humanity might become if we dare to approach the truth fully. And here lies the challenge. If the story of Enoch were widely known, would it awaken the same curiosity, fear, and awe that it inspired in those who first read it? Would it make us reconsider not just the past, but the choices we make today, the spiritual battles we face, and the potential hidden within us? But there is one detail about Enoch that continues to baffle scholars. What did he see in the deepest chambers of heaven, in the places where no human is meant to tread? And it is this mystery, this unanswered question, that will lead us into the next chapter. The hidden knowledge of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the cycles of prophecy that continue to unfold even now. The Watchers didn't just transgress boundaries. They brought knowledge, secrets that were never meant for humanity. They taught metallurgy, not just how to shape metal, but how to forge weapons capable of destruction. They revealed the movements of the stars and the patterns of the heavens, but also the dark arts, sorcery, divination, and forbidden rituals. Knowledge meant to illuminate became a weapon in the wrong hands, and humanity, unprepared and innocent, was forever changed. Every invention, every arcane practice, every misuse of power carries echoes of this ancient contamination, and the consequences were immediate and devastating. The Nephilim, offspring of angels and humans, were giants not just in size, but in influence and corruption. They consumed, destroyed, and reshaped the earth in ways unimaginable. But their impact wasn't only physical. They corrupted the lineage of humanity, blending divine spirit with human flesh, creating a genetic imprint that carried rebellion, ambition, and hubris. This was more than a story of giants. It was a spiritual and biological intervention in creation itself. Every step of progress, every moral collapse, every shadow in human history can, in some way, trace its roots to this forbidden inheritance. Yet, This is a detail that has puzzled theologians for centuries. Why does the Bible only hint at these events? Genesis mentions the sons of God and the daughters of men. A line so cryptic it reads like a riddle. But Enoch decodes it. He names the watchers. He explains their motives. He traces the consequences. He records the corruption that spread through the world, the contamination that reached Noah's generation, and the divine intervention that followed. The knowledge was preserved, but hidden, intentionally omitted from the canonical texts. Scholars suggest it was too dangerous, too revealing, too capable of challenging established authority. And perhaps, in part, they are right. But the Book of Enoch does more than recount history. It projects forward. It outlines 7 cycles of time, eras of crisis, judgment, and redemption, each with its own events and consequences. Humanity, and even creation itself, moves in a spiral of repetition and evolution. The ancient seers understood this. And if Enoch was right, then perhaps we are living in one of those cycles now, oblivious to the spiritual currents shaping our world. Could the unrest, the moral confusion, the global conflicts be an echo of these cycles? Are we unknowingly walking through patterns that were foreseen thousands of years ago? And here lies the most chilling thought. If the Watcher's knowledge shaped the past, could it still influence the present? Some secrets, preserved in hidden texts, libraries, and sacred manuscripts, may be influencing the course of events even now. Knowledge once forbidden may have been appropriated, wielded by those who seek power over truth, over faith, and over human destiny. The silence surrounding Enoch's revelations was never innocent. It was a shield, a way to contain knowledge too potent, too dangerous to reveal to the masses. And yet, here it is, resurfacing, hidden no longer, waiting for those brave enough to confront it. And this raises the question that links the past to our present. If divine knowledge was misused then, what truths are we missing now? What lessons, buried for centuries, are poised to awaken in the modern age? The echoes of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and their forbidden teachings are not just historical. They are a mirror to the spiritual and moral challenges humanity still faces today. But one detail remains elusive, one mystery that continues to elude scholars and seekers alike. What is the ultimate purpose of these revelations, and how might they guide us in the times ahead? That is the question we will explore in the next chapter, the prophetic cycles and the lessons for humanity's future. Enoch's revelations do not stop with history. They extend forward, projecting a vision of time itself as a series of cycles, 7 distinct eras, each with crises, judgments, and opportunities for renewal. Time, in this view, is not linear, as we often perceive it, but spiraling, repeating patterns that evolve, reflecting the moral and spiritual state of humanity. And within these cycles, the consequences of the Watcher's rebellion continue to reverberate, shaping the destiny of the world and the soul of every human being. The prophetic vision Enoch records is startling in its precision. He foretells the rise and fall of empires, the moral decay of humanity, the enduring struggle between righteousness and rebellion. He speaks of messianic judgment, thrones prepared for the mighty, and the ultimate fall of those who defy divine order. These cycles are not mere allegories. They are warnings, guides, and perhaps even maps of the spiritual landscape that humanity must navigate. And when we consider these patterns, it is impossible not to see echoes in the present. Wars, moral crises, environmental collapse. Are they the faint echoes of a cycle Enoch foresaw thousands of years ago? The Book of Enoch also challenges us to reconsider the sources of our understanding. John's revelation, written centuries later, echoes many of the same themes: the fall of angels, divine judgment, purification, and ultimate restoration. Were John and Enoch drawing from a shared vision, or did they witness the same cosmic truth from different perspectives? Either way, the resonance is undeniable. The message is clear: history is not random. Spiritual forces, both seen and unseen, influence the flow of events, and understanding them is essential if we are to navigate the world with wisdom. And yet, the cycles are not meant to instill fear alone. They are invitations to awaken, to recognize the patterns within ourselves, and to take responsibility for the spiritual inheritance we carry. The corruption of the past, the the rebellion of the Watchers, and the lessons of the Nephilim all point to the need for vigilance, discernment, and moral clarity. Enoch's vision is a call to see beyond surface reality, to perceive the hidden battles that shape life, and to act in alignment with the divine order that seeks to restore balance. Consider for a moment, if these cycles continue, what era are we in now? Are we at a turning point, on the verge of judgment or renewal? Could the restlessness, conflict, and uncertainty we witness today be signs that the spiritual machinery of the cosmos is in motion, responding to choices both ancient and modern? These questions are not speculative. They are embedded in Enoch's account, urging us to pay attention, to awaken, and to act with awareness. And here is the most compelling part. Enoch's vision suggests that humanity still has agency. The cycles may be predetermined in their structure, but within each, there is opportunity for redemption, for understanding, for alignment with the divine will. The Watchers' rebellion was catastrophic, but it was not absolute. The possibility for restoration, for spiritual awakening, remains. And perhaps that is why the Book of Enoch was hidden for so long. It challenges us to confront the past, understand the cycles, and recognize the spiritual responsibilities we carry today. Yet one question remains, lingering at the edge of every scholar's study and seeker's contemplation. If these cycles are ongoing, what will the final chapter reveal? What does it mean for us, in our own time, to witness the echoes of prophecy unfolding in the world around us? And that question leads us directly to the conclusion, the awakening that Enoch invites us to, a journey that is both spiritual and deeply personal, and one that each of us must choose to embrace. Now, after everything we've explored, the story of Enoch invites a question that cannot be ignored. Will you remain in the shadow of what you've been told, or will you step into the light of what has been hidden? The Book of Enoch is not just an ancient manuscript. It is a key, a doorway, an invitation to awaken. It asks us to see beyond the surface, to confront the hidden truths of history, spirituality, and ourselves. And it challenges us to face the possibility that reality is far more complex and far more extraordinary than most are willing to admit. Enoch's journey was unique. He walked with God in a way few humans ever have. He saw the Watchers fall, the gateways between worlds, the corruption of creation, and the cycles of prophecy that extend to this very day. He witnessed judgment and mercy, destruction and restoration. And he recorded it all, not for fame, not for doctrine, but to preserve a memory, a warning, and perhaps a guide. Reading Enoch is not merely an academic exercise. It is an encounter with the sacred, a confrontation with the hidden forces that shape existence itself. And yet, this knowledge comes with responsibility. Understanding the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the cycles of prophecy is not meant to incite fear. It is meant to awaken discernment, to deepen faith, and to illuminate the choices that define the course of our lives. The corruption of the past may echo in the present, but within each of us lies the potential to resist, to purify, and to align with the divine order. Enoch's account reminds us that spiritual awareness is not passive. It requires courage, attention, and the willingness to see the world as it truly is, beyond comforting narratives or institutional silences. Imagine, for a moment, the world if the knowledge preserved in Enoch had never been hidden. How different might our understanding of morality, power, and human potential be? And now, imagine that the awakening he calls for is not just about history, it is about you. What does it mean to live with awareness of the hidden cycles, the spiritual battles, and the divine possibilities embedded in every choice you make? This is the question that lingers as the final piece of Enoch's message comes into view. Awareness changes everything. And here is the challenge that Enoch places before each of us, to choose. To acknowledge that the story we were taught may not be the full story, and that there are mysteries, truths, and spiritual realities waiting to be discovered. The Book of Enoch awakens curiosity, humility, and vigilance. It asks us to walk carefully, to seek understanding, and to participate in the unfolding of creation with both reverence and courage. To ignore it is easy, to awaken is difficult. But awakening is the path to freedom, insight, and connection to the divine. So, now that you've seen what has long been hidden, what will you do? Will you continue as if nothing was revealed, Or will you step into the journey Enoch invites us to take? Take a deep breath, reflect, and recognize that the choice is not symbolic. It is spiritual. Your awareness, your engagement, your willingness to confront the unknown determines how this ancient knowledge will shape your life. If you feel the call, leave this phrase in the comments. I choose to awaken. It is a small gesture, but one that marks a commitment to seeing, understanding, and participating in the sacred mysteries of creation. The Book of Enoch is not merely a story of the past. It is a living invitation to awaken. Its warnings, visions, and revelations are as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago. And as long as there are seekers willing to step into the light, the legacy of Enoch will continue, guiding those brave enough to walk beyond the veil, confront hidden truths, and embrace the spiritual awakening that has waited in silence for centuries.